motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Reconciliation as it pertains to controversial Olympian Emain Khalif by way of World Boxing, who are set to introduce mandatory sex testing for all boxers. World Boxing will introduce mandatory sex testing to determine the eligibility of male and female athletes that want to take part in its competitions. The introduction of mandatory testing will be part of a new policy on sex, age, and weight to ensure the safety of all participants and deliver a competitive level playing field for men and women. The policy is in the final stages of development and has been crafted by a specially convened working group of the World Boxing Medical and Anti-Doping Committee, which has examined data and medical evidence from an extensive range of sources and consulted widely with other sports and experts across the world in light of plans to introduce this policy and the particular circumstances surrounding some boxers that competed at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. World Boxing has written to the Algerian Boxing Federation to inform it that Emain Khalif will not be allowed to participate in the female category at Eindhoven Box. This decision reflects concerns over the safety and well-being of all boxers, including Emain Khalif, and aims to protect the mental and physical health of all participants in light of some of the reactions that have been expressed in relation to the boxer's potential participation at the Eindhoven Box Cup. The letter sent by World Boxing to the Algerian Boxing Federation. Emain Khalif may not participate in the female category at Eindhoven Box Cup and at any World Boxing event until Emain Khalif undergoes genetic sex screening in accordance with World Boxing's rules and testing procedures. In accordance with the World Boxing statutes, amendments to the competition rules are typically made by Congress. However, under special or emergency circumstances, the World Boxing Executive Board holds the authority to make immediate amendments when a rule is deemed no longer functional or when evolving conditions necessitate a change. In May of 2025, the Executive Board exercised its authority and adopted new eligibility criteria for participation in sex-specific boxing categories. These new eligibility rules were developed with the express purpose of safeguarding athletes in combat sports, particularly given the physical risks associated with Olympic-style boxing. Please be advised that per World Boxing policy, in the event the athlete's sex certification is challenged by the Athletes Federation or by World Boxing, the athlete shall be ineligible to compete until the dispute is resolved. This decision is designed solely to ensure the health and safety of all participants in World Boxing competitions, including Emain Khalif, and is not deemed to in any way prejudge the outcome of any testing that will be introduced as part of the new policy on sex, age, and weight. World Boxing's new policy and the introduction of testing will mean that all athletes over the age of 18 that want to participate in World Boxing tournaments, owned or sanctioned competitions will need to undergo a PCR genetic test to determine their sex at birth and their eligibility to compete. The PCR test is a laboratory technique used to detect specific genetic material, in this case, the SRY gene, that reveals the presence of the Y chromosome, which is an indicator of biological sex. The test can be conducted by nasal, mouth swab, saliva, or blood. Athletes that are deemed to be male at birth, as evidenced by the presence of Y chromosome genetic material, or with a difference of sexual development, DSD, where male androgenization involves, will be eligible to compete in the male category,
Where they belong.
Athletes that are deemed to be female at birth, as evidenced by the presence of XX chromosomes or the absence of Y chromosome genetic material, or with a DSD where male androgenization does not occur, will be eligible to compete in the female category.
They're being specific, very specific, because they have to be.
World Boxing respects the dignity of all individuals, and its overriding priority is to ensure safety and competitive fairness to all athletes. To do this, it is essential that strict categories determined by sex are maintained and enforced, and means that World Boxing will only operate competitions for athletes categorized as male or female. Under the new policy, national federations will be responsible for testing and will be required to confirm the sex of their athletes when entering them into World Boxing competitions by providing a certification of their chromosomal sex, as determined by a PCR test. A failure to provide certification of the chromosomal sex of an athlete or the provision of a false certification will render the athlete ineligible to compete and may lead to sanctions against the athlete and or the athlete's national federation, where test results for boxers that want to compete in the female category reveal Y chromosome genetic material and a potential DSD, the initial screenings will be referred to independent clinical specialists for genetic screening, hormonal profiles, anatomical examination, or other valuation of endocrine profiles by medical specialists. As part of its new policy, World Boxing will reserve the right to do genetic sex screenings on new or existing athlete samples to confirm certification, just in case those regional entities want to help a fighter falsify their certification. The policy will include an appeals process. Support will be offered to any boxers that provide an adverse test result. The new sex, age, and weight policy will come into force from July 1st of this year. World Boxing was launched in April of 2023 with a mission to ensure that boxing remains at the heart of the Olympic movement. It held its first formal meeting with the IOC in May of last year, and on the 25th of February of this one, it was granted provisional recognition by the IOC as the international federation within the Olympic movement governing the sport of boxing at world level. On the 20th of March of this year, the IOC had confirmed that boxing had been restored to the sports program for the next Olympic Games. There you have it. They were thorough, because they had to be. And I wondered if any safeguards were going to be put in place, or if it was too soon, because World Boxing had, after all, just been formed. Would they have been afraid to act for fear that they would be denied recognition by the IOC for doing so? Well, we have our answer. And this is neither demeaning or demoralizing to a fighter like Emain Khalif, because they're not subject to anything everybody else isn't subject to. They all have to get tested. The question is, what is Emain Khalif going to do now? If Emain Khalif and Lin Yuting decide to bow out without getting tested, you know what that means. We all do. And all those bleeding hearts who swore up and down on a stack of Bibles that there was nothing to see here and nothing to hide will quickly crawl under a rock. They can take their idealism with them, because underneath it all, it's just like former Olympian Caitlyn Jenner said. It has to come down to the chromosomes. And it's just that simple.
You just mentioned that Canelo slowing down. His legs don't look the same. Canelo versus Crawford. Who you got, Coach?
We're going to see the same fight that we saw with Charlo and Skold. And, come on, Des Crawford's a great fighter, really, really good fighter. He's going up 2 divisions, and you think he's going to stay in front of Canelo? No, he's going to tap him, move out, and try to win the fight. He don't give a fuck about the people, what they think. And if I was fighting Canelo now, if I was that little, the same fight that happened with Charlo, same fight with Straw, this guy's a little guy, bro. You think Crawford is going to come and trade with him?
No, not trade him, but he'll let his hands go more than those guys. They do enough to win the fight.
Well, that's what you think. That's what everybody thinks.
Right.
He's going to fucking bomb and move, boom, and boom, boom. You think he's going to, by the time he throws, because Canelo, you throw a punch at him, you're going to catch him. Now, if you try to throw 2 punches, he's going to catch you with a big shot.
He's giving away the game.
That's what he does. That's what he does. No, that's what he does. He gets hit.
Floyd won a lot of fights like that. He just pop shot him.
Oh, come on. You cannot compare Floyd.
He's not Floyd Mayweather.
He's not Floyd Mayweather, But that's what I think, I think it's just going to be a boring fight. People are going to be very upset. Remember this. People are going to be super upset with this fight. Again.
Thank you, Jose.
Oh, Jose Benavidez is of the opinion that Terence Crawford's just showing up for a check. He's gonna do what Jermell Charlo did, what William Skull just did. He's gonna run. I feel like Jose Benavidez sees things in terms of black and white. Boxing the same way, that you're either gonna come forward or you're gonna move backwards. There's no in between. When in fact, there is. And that's what we saw when Floyd Mayweather fought Canelo Alvarez years ago. He didn't hang back. He didn't circle away. He fought Canelo Alvarez in the pocket, rolling punches off the shoulder and countering in kind. Rolling and countering, slipping and countering, pulling and countering. His signature pull counter. To do all of this, you have to be mid-range to inside. You have to be within striking distance of the opponent. And I'm of the opinion that Terence is basing his strategy off of Floyd's strategy. Now, that doesn't mean it's gonna work. Circumstances are very different. He is facing a far more experienced Canelo Alvarez, a far more seasoned fighter than the fighter that Floyd fought. Canelo's picked up a trick or two since then, and after all, Terence Crawford hasn't fought in over a year. That matters too, that you're essentially gonna be shaking off ring rust with Canelo. But you know, that's what Jose thinks. Jose is of the opinion the aesthetic of the fight will not be pleasing, and all Terence is gonna do is run. Let's hope that he doesn't. Let's hope that this turns out to be a more appetizing fight than, say, the Skull fight, the Berlanga fight, the Charlo fight, because that would be a bad advertisement for the sport of boxing. Boxing doesn't need more fights like that, more fighters like that. People generally watch boxing for the action. You might find a few boxing snobs, few hipsters that say that they watch boxing for the movement. Oh, I watch boxing for the defense. That's tantamount to saying I eat burgers for the lettuce.
Why don't you get the hell out of here?
Spare me the contrarian tropes. Most people watch boxing for the action. I hope Terence brings some. Terence Crawford, in a very general sense, is not a boring fighter, is not an outside cutie pie. That's not how he normally fights. Then again, Canelo has that effect on people. We'll see if he has that effect on Terence. Finally, in men's super middleweight news, ahead of tomorrow night's PBC on Amazon show, Jermall Charlo on future Caleb Plant Showdown, I'm going to get my lick back. Las Vegas. Jermall Charlo made it a point to remain calm throughout fight week despite sharing the stage with Caleb Plant. His decision to take the high road should not be mistaken, however, for having buried the hatchet with his longtime rival. In fact, this weekend's PBC on Prime Video quadruple header featuring Plant and Charlo in separate bouts is designed to lead to a head-on collision later this year. Both need to win on Saturday to move forward with what very much remains a grudge match in waiting. I'ma get my lick back, trust me, Charlo told Boxing Scene and other reporters after Thursday's final press conference. If they said it, I will get my lick back this year. Jake Donovan is the one who wrote this article with the angle that this is a grudge match. Maybe it's supposed to be a grudge match. Except that I don't know that the grudge is still there. After Caleb Plant said, I've kind of put that fight on the back burner too. He's been nice, he's been respectful. He was telling me back there that he was a big fan of me, my family. Just going down the list. Caleb Plant said of Jermall Charlo. So where a showdown between them is intended to be a grudge match, I'm not sure that the grudge is still there. Charlo and Plant have not been in the same space since that viral moment. In fact, they've only fought once each in that span of time, 10 months apart, on separate PBC shows in Vegas. They've now appeared on the same stage twice in the span of just 3 weeks. Some words were exchanged during the press conference, but never to where the threat of violence entered the equation. Both know what's at stake and have been more focused on their respective opponents than each other. I learned what God really meant when he said to turn the other cheek, Charlo quipped. It don't faze me now. I want my lick back for sure, but I won't mess up the bag. I won't blow the bag. I've got to get the money. I'd rather fight him in the ring than go to jail. If I slapped his ass today at the press conference, I'll go to jail. Oh, stop it. When Caleb slapped the taste out of your mouth, he didn't go to jail. You wouldn't go to jail for retaliating. You could always say you're building a fight. It's part of the job. My brother is one of the main reasons I got back into boxing. Jermall said of Jermell, his younger twin brother by 1 minute, I always drift off a little bit, go off to something else. My brother is always like, hey bro, stay focused. We opened up a gym together, just got back motivated. We talked about moving to a new head trainer, Highland Williams from Ronnie Shields. You need that drive again. Me and my brother got motivated. In the spirit of being his brother's keeper, the question was posed whether Charlo would enter his showdown with Alvarez. The matchup would make more sense from a physical standpoint, as he is now a full-fledged super middle, and Alvarez is a two-time and current undisputed champion at the weight. Whether an Alvarez-Charlo clash happens down the road remains to be seen. For now, it's not even close to being a priority, not when there is more pressing, unfinished business to handle. To be honest with you, I'd rather fight Caleb than Canelo, Charlo confessed. To each his own. Say whatever. I'm not ducking nobody, or whatever. I'd rather get the Caleb Plant situation handled for the world and for the fans. I have to sleep with that. The Canelo fight is potentially for me to better myself, but that incident was something that has held me back. So I want to take care of that first. When I read through the article, seeing that Charlo said he came back to boxing, came back as if he retired, well, that's how I think of Charlo, as a quasi-retired fighter whose heart really isn't in it anymore. And fighters saying that they've got their motivation back are a dime a dozen. They all say that once they've got a fight in the books, but when he says it, it doesn't carry much weight. It has no meaning. The idea that you're gonna stage a fight between these two guys for $80 a pop because they had a little tussle in a parking lot 2 years ago reeks of desperation and hard times for what is a thinning and aging stable that doesn't have much in terms of new blood to offer. This would be like a Top Rank staging a fight between Ray Beltran and Gamboa because Gamboa double parked in front of his house. Silly. An altercation in a parking lot 2 years ago is a pretty silly reason to put together a pay-per-view and actually expect people to pay to see it. They matched Jermall Charlo Baby Soft to make sure that he can make it to that Plant fight. They put him in there with Cornflake Lamanna. I think Caleb has got the tougher assignment in Resendiz. We'll see how he looks with that guy. We'll see. But it ain't the most ambitious show.